In this video, I'm gonna create this environment from scratch in Unreal Engine 5. So let's do it. Base level. On the top left, click on File and let's select New Level, and I'm gonna go with Basic Level. So click on Create and here it is. Let's delete the volumetric cloud, sky sphere, and that's enough for now. I'm also gonna delete the player start and the floor. Now here click on Save and browse to where you want to save it. Name it and click on Save. Now we have saved the level, so let's create the landscape. Here click on Selection mode and go to the Landscape mode. So here are the settings I'm gonna use for the landscape. I've set sections per component to 2x2 sections and the number of components to 2 and 2. I've also scaled down the landscape to 50 in each axis, and I've enabled the edit layers. So let's click on Create and here's the landscape. I've added all the assets I'm gonna use in this environment in a collection down here. So let's start with the landscape material. I'm gonna use this soil mud material. So let's press Ctrl B to browse it, and I'm gonna press Ctrl C to copy it because I may need to edit the material and I want the original material to stay the same. So let's press Ctrl C to copy it and browse to the materials folder. Here press Ctrl V to paste it. Let's also rename it to environment 9. Now let's go to the selection mode, select the landscape, and here I'm gonna drag the material to the landscape material slot here. Okay. Let's edit the material a little bit. So open it. I'm gonna decrease the tiling to 0.66 and I'm gonna decrease the base specular a little bit. 0.3 is good. So let's save and close this one, and now I'm gonna add a path to the landscape. So let's go back to the landscape mode. Here click on Manage and click on Spline. Let's create a new level for the spline. So click on the plus button here and select the landscape edit layer splines. Make sure to select it, and now let's add the spline. To add the spline, all we have to do is to press and hold the control key on the keyboard and click on the landscape, and the starting point of the spline is added here. Let's tweak the details a little bit. So I want the half width to be 100 and I want the side fall off to be 250. That's good. So now press and hold the control key and click to add the other points of the spline. If any of the points is messed up like this one, just select it and rotate it until it's fixed. You can also move it a little bit to fix it. Now I'm gonna spend some time to make the path the way I want it to look. So that's enough. Now let's select all the control points and let's move them 150 centimeters down. So that's enough, and that's how the path is gonna look. And the great thing is that because we have added a spline in another layer, we can change it anytime and the landscape will be updated automatically. So let's save it, go back to the selection mode, and now in the next section I'm gonna add trees. Trees. Let's start with adding the trees. I'm gonna use the PCG plugin to scatter the trees and the foliage in this environment. So first make sure that it's turned on. And to do that, go to the settings, plugins, search for PCG, and make sure procedural content generation framework or PCG is turned on. So let's go to the PCG folder, right click, and under PCG, create a new PCG graph. Let's name it PCG underline environment 9 underline forest. Save it and open it. Let's change the layout a little bit. So let's do it like this. While the viewport is selected, press F10 to make it full screen. Right click in the PCG graph, search for surface and add the surface sampler node. Drag out of the surface and search for landscape. Get the landscape data node. And now if we select the surface sampler and press D, okay, I forgot to add the PCG to the level. So click on the content browser here and let's add it to the level. Now we can see the points that are scattered on the landscape. The first thing I'm gonna do is that because the landscape is small, I'm gonna enable unbounded so that it scatters everywhere on the landscape. If you have a large landscape, don't enable this. Let's set the point extents for the trees to 50 by 50 and the default point per square meter is fine. Now let's drag out of the surface sampler, search for a static mesh spawner and add the static mesh spawner. Let's add a mesh tree, and for this one I'm gonna use this tree. I've selected 3 trees from the European Hornbeam connection by Quixel to use in this environment. So let's select the first one and drag it into here. And as you can see, the landscape is filled with trees. Now we have too much trees, so let's go on the surface sampler node and set the point per square meter to 0.05 or 0.03. That's better. There's one thing we can notice though. There are trees around the path and on the path, and it doesn't look good. So let's select the static mesh spawner, press E to disable it, and now I'm gonna remove the points which are on the path or near the path. And for that, let's right click here, search for spline sampler and add the node. Drag out of the spline, search for get spline and add the get spline data node. Here set the actor filter to all world actors, actor selection to by class, and actor selection class, search for landscape and select the landscape. Now on the spline sampler, enable unbounded and press D to debug it. Now we can see that some points have emerged on the path. So let's edit that. I'm gonna set it to, instead of subdivision, to distance. Set the distance increment to something low like 50. And now let's drag out of here, search for bounds, and add the bounds modifier node. Select it, press Ctrl Alt D, so we only debug this node. And let's set the scale so we better see the points. I'll set the bounds mean in the X direction to 2. In the Y direction, let's set it to 2 also. And let's increase it in the Z direction to 10. Let's increase it to 100. That's better. So let's increase it a little more to something like 200. Okay, that's better. Now let's decrease the bounds in the y-axis to 1 or 0.5. No, 0.8, 0.7, 0.9. 0.9 is good. So let's set it on both sides. Okay. Let's also set the bounds min and max in the x-axis to something higher like 5. That's better. Now let's add a named reroute here. Select it, press F2, and let's name it path. Now here, after the surface sampler, right click, search for difference, select the surface sampler of the trees to the source, and let's drag this down here, press C to add a comment, and let's name it path. Also, let's enable the show bubble when zoomed. And now for the differences, I'm gonna right click under named reroutes, I'm gonna add path. Connect it and set the density function to binary. Now if I press D on this one, we can see that we have no longer any points on the path or around it. And that's good. Let's press Ctrl Shift S to save everything. Let's drag the trees in the level. As you can see, they have different scales. So I'm gonna use 3 different static mesh spawner for each of them, so I can control the scale of them separately. So here, after the difference node, let's add a density noise. And now let's add a density filter. 3 of them. For the first one, I'm gonna set the lower bound to 0 and the upper bound to 0.3. For the second one, I'm gonna set the lower bound to 0.35 and the upper bound to 0.65. And for the third one, I'm gonna set the lower bound to 0.7 and the upper bound is 1. Now let's add a transform point for each of them. select all of them. Let's set the rotation max in the z-axis to 360 for all of them, and add a static mesh spawner after each of them. Let's delete these 3 trees. Let's actually scale them to see what scale I should set in the transform points node. So for this one, I think around 1.5 is good. And for this one, around 0.8 is good. So let's delete these. This is the first one, the second one, and the third one. Let's enable this one. Select it, press E to enable it. Set the scale mean to 0.7 or 0.6 and scale max to 0.9. For this one, let's add a mission tree, and let's add the second tree. This one I'll set the scale mean to 0.8 and the scale max to 1.2. Let's add a mission tree here and add the third tree. For this one, I'm gonna set the scale mean to 1.35 and the scale max to 1.65. Okay, that's good. Now let's add some trees specifically on the sides of the road. Let's first organize these nodes a little bit. So select all these, press Q so they're aligned horizontally. Let's actually select all of these. Select all of them, press C to add a comment. Let's name this one main trees. That's good. Now press D on this one to disable the debug, and select all of these, press E to disable them, and save everything. Now let's add the trees on the side of the path, and for that let's drag the path here. For that I'm gonna use the same nodes we used here. So let's select these 2 nodes and press Ctrl D to duplicate them here. Select it, press D. Here are the points on the path. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna use these points. I'm gonna right click, search for create point, and again right click, search for copy point, and add it. Now create point creates any number of points we want, and for now by default it creates 1 point, and that's enough. Let's connect it to the source and connect the spline sampler to the target. Disable the debug on this one and enable the debug on this one. Okay. Now it doesn't look good, but that's because we're gonna need to add 1 more node before connecting it to the target input here. So right click, search for transform point, connect it like this, and on the transform points we need to enable absolute scale. And now the point which is copied on each of these points is gonna have its own scale. So here search for bounds modifier, enable it, and let's increase it to something high so we can see the points. Here they are. Now we need to transform them on both sides of the path. So let's drag out of here, search for transform points, debug this one. I'm gonna set the offset in the y-axis to 300. Then I'm gonna project it on the landscape. Add the projection node, and for the projection target, search for landscape. We're gonna need get height only. And here are the points. Now 300 seems good. So let's set the minimum to 200 and the maximum to 400. And now we have a variation of trees. Let's actually set the minimum to 250 and the maximum to 400 is good for the maximum. So these are the points on one side of the path. Let's add points on the other side of the path too. Drag out of here, or let's duplicate the same transform point here. I'm gonna set this one to minus 250 and minus 400. After that, let's merge these points. So merge them like this and connect it to the projection. Now that's much better. Now the thing is that trees are usually much larger than these small points. So here on the bounds modifier, let's set the bounds min to 50 by 50 on each axis. That seems more like a tree. After the merge node, let's add a self pruning node. This way any of the points which overlap will be removed. Okay, and that's good. Now on the transform, let's add some more variation in the x-axis. So I'm gonna set the minimum to minus 50 and the maximum to 50. Also here, let's tweak the bounds to 40. This way we're gonna have more trees. Okay, that's fine. Let's save everything. So now I want to delete some of these. I want to have trees on some parts, and I want some parts to not have trees. And for that, I'm gonna use a spatial noise node. So let's search for noise and add the spatial noise. Let's debug it. Set the contrast to 2 and a scale to something like 20. Or let's set it to 30. Okay. Now add a density filter. Debug this one and set the lower bound to 0.2. Or let's set the lower bound to 0 and the upper bound to 0.7 or 0.6. There's one more thing I need to do. Let's add a density noise after the merge point. And another thing I want to do is to change the seed on these transform points. They shouldn't have the same seed. So let's decrease this one and increase this one. That is better. Okay, now we can see that on some parts we have trees on both sides. On some parts we have trees on one side and we don't have trees on the other side, like here, and that's the variation I was looking for. Let's save everything and continue. After the density filter here, let's drag out of it and add another density noise. And now I'm gonna select all these nodes and copy them down here. Let's select them and enable them. It looks fine, but just to be sure, let's disable the debug on this one. We can see that we should offset some of the trees in the z-axis. So here, select all the transform points and set the offset minimum in the z-axis to -50. I'm gonna set the minimum to -40, the maximum to -60. Okay, now it's better. Let's also increase the scale for these trees. So for the first one, I'm gonna set the scale min to 0.7 and scale max to 1. Second one, I'm gonna set a scale min to 0.95 and a scale max to 1.35. And for the third one, I'm gonna set a scale min to 1.55 and a scale max to 1.85. Now select all these nodes, press C to add a comment, and I'm gonna name them trees side of the path. Let's save everything, and in the next part I'm gonna add some seedlings around the trees. Seedlings. Now let's add some seedlings around the trees which are on the sides of the path. In this environment, my main focus is on the path, and that's where I'm gonna add all the details around the path. So first of all, let's add a named reroute for the points we used to create the trees. So add a merge points, connect all the density filters, and if I enable this, we can see that these are all the points we used to create the trees around the path. Drag out of it, search for named reroute. Okay. Named reroute. Add a named reroute. Press F2 and let's name these path trees. Now down here, let's create a point grid. And let's also add the path trees. I'm gonna use a copy points node to Now I'm gonna use the copy points to copy all the points we created here to where the trees are. So let's debug this node, and right now the grid extents and cell size are very high. So let's set this one to 100 and this one to 50. Now drag out of here, search for bounds modifier, and let's set the bounds in the x and y axis to 0.2. These are the points we're gonna use to scatter the seedlings. Add a transform points. Set the offset mean to -40 in both axes and 40 for the max. The next thing I wanna do is to remove the points which intersect with the points of the trees. So let's add a difference node, and as the differences I'm gonna use the path trees. Debug this one and let's set the density function to binary. Let's also increase the number of points, so let's set it to 40, and that's better, I think. Let's add a projection node here, and project the points on the landscape. Let's only get the height. This one I'll set the minimum offset to -30 and the maximum also to 30. That's better. Now drag out of here, search for transform points. On this one I'm gonna add some variation to the rotation. So let's set the max rotation in the z-axis to 360 and -3 in the x and y axis, and 3 for the max in the x and y axis. And drag out of here, search for a static mesh spawner. And here are the seedlings I'm gonna use. They're from the same pack as the trees, the European Hornbeam pack. So add 4 elements and add them one by one. And here's the result. Let's also add some variation to the scale. I'm gonna set the scale min to 0.7 and the scale max to 1.5. Let's save everything. Next, I'm gonna add grass to the environment. But before that, if you're finding this helpful, like the video and subscribe. You can get early access to videos and download the tutorial project files, including the shareable assets of this project, by becoming a supporter on Patreon. And if you want to stay connected and get help when you need it, join our Telegram and Discord communities. All the links are in the description. Grass. First of all, let's select all these nodes, press C, and let's name it clumps. Let's name it seedlings. Now let's add the grass. So for the grass, I'm gonna use these grass meshes I've downloaded from the Megascans. First, let's add these grass clumps. Right click, search for surface sampler, drag out of the surface input and let's search for landscape. Add the get landscape data node. Select this one, press D. Let's decrease the point extents for the grass. So let's set the X and Y to 5 and the Z axis to 10. And let's also increase the points per squared meter to something like 5 or 10. Now let's remove the points which are on the path. So drag out of here, search for difference, and for the difference, let's add the path. Drag out of it, search for a bounds modifier, because right now it's too large, and if I connect it like this, it will remove the grass up until here. So let's add a bounds modifier here, disconnect this one, and let's press D to see how it looks. I'm gonna set the bounds in the y-axis to 0.5, 0.1, in the x-axis I'm gonna set it to 0.5, I think that looks good. Let's also set the bounds in the z-axis to 0.3. Now let's disable the debug on this phone. It looks good now. Let's add the meshes. But before that, let's add a spatial noise. I want to remove the grass on some of the points. Let's debug it, set the contrast to 2 and the scale to 30. Or let's also here on the surface sampler enable the unbounded option. That's better. Now add a density filter, debug this one, and let's set the minimum or lower bound to 0.3. Okay, that's much better. Let's add another node actually. Drag out of here, search for blueprint, and add the execute blueprint node. On the blueprint element type, search for a scale and density. A scale by density is the one I'm gonna use. So let's debug it, set the scale min to 0.5 and the scale max to 1. Now the points which are on the edges have a lower scale, and I think it looks better. Let's drag out of it, search for a static mesh spawner, and add 2 entries, and let's add the grass. Let's also add a transform points node here, right before the static mesh spawner. Add some variation to the rotation. Let's add the maximum rotation in the z-axis to 360, and let's also increase the scale to something like 1.5 and 3, or 1.2 and 2.5. Let's actually decrease the scale to 1 and 1.6 and increase the number of points. Let's set it to 15. Disable the debug on this one. Now I think it looks good. Let's increase it to something like 20. 15, 20. Something around 17 or 17.5 is good. So let's save everything. Let's also do another thing. I'm gonna scale the grasses which are near the path. So let's add a distance node here. For now, let's disable this one. For the target, I'm gonna use the bounds modifier we used for the path. Press D to debug it. And let's enable set density. Decrease this one to something like 100 or 50. That's good. 60 I think is good, or 70. Let's duplicate the scale by density node. Debug this one, and let's set the scale min to something like 0.75 or 0.7. Connect it to the transform point. Let's organize these a little bit. And enable this. And now the grass which is near the path is smaller. Let's decrease the bounds to 0.08. Okay, it looks better now. Let's try increasing the size of the spatial noise to something like 50. And yeah. Let's save everything, and next I'm gonna add some more grass, and these ones will be single grasses, not grass clumps. Let's first select the surface sampler and change the seed. Okay, and now select all of these, press C, and let's name it grass. clump. Now to add the single grasses, first of all I'm gonna add them only around the path. So just like the way we added the trees on the side of the path, let's select all of these nodes right before the density filters and duplicate them down here. The first thing I'm gonna change is to delete the create point and add a create point grid. Connect it like this, and let's go here and press D to see the points. Okay, these are some big points. What should we do? First of all, let's decrease the grid extents to 70 and the cell size to 30. Then let's see what we have here. Oh, the bounds modifier, the values in the bounds modifier are very large, so let's set them to 1 and then decrease them down to 0.3. Okay. The next thing I'm gonna do is to change the values on the transform points. So I'm gonna set the offset min to 50 or 60 and the offset max to 500. Let's also change it to -60 and -500. Now let's see, 60 I think is too low. Let's set it to -80 and 80. Okay, let's save everything. In this case I don't need a self pruning node, so let's delete it. On the projection I want select the get landscape data node and disable get height only. I want the rotation too. On the spatial noise, on the transform points, let's change the seed. Also let's change it here, because we have duplicated the nodes, it's better to change the seed. I'm also gonna change it on the spatial noise node, and let's set the transform to something different like 40. So on the density filter I'm gonna set the upper bound to 1 and the lower bound to 0.3. We have an attribute noise, so let's drag out of it, search for density filter again, debug this node, and that's better I think. Now here I'm gonna add the same node we added for the grass clumps, both after the spatial noise. So let's duplicate the scale by density node and put it here. Also, let's select the distance node. Where is it? Here it is. Let's duplicate distance and the scale by density node. Duplicate them down here. connect them like this, and for the target I'm gonna use the path. So let's select these two, press Ctrl D to paste them here and connect them like this. Now let's debug this one, and as you can see now, the single grasses that are closer to the path are smaller. So let's see. Let's decrease the maximum distance to 50, and let's change the bounds to 0.7. 0.07. And here on the scale by densities, let's set the scale min to 0.5 or 0.6. Now drag out of here and let's add a density noise. Here it is. Let's change the seed, and it's fixed. Did you see what happened there? Before, because the seed was the same as the attribute noise here, it didn't work correctly. After changing it, it works correctly. So let's save everything. Now we have two types of single grasses I want to use. Let's go to the collection. I have these two and a ribbon grass. So I'm gonna use two static mesh spawners. Drag out of here, search for density filter and add it. Duplicate it. For this one, I'm gonna enable invert filter. Add an transform points node. Duplicate them here. And let's add a static mesh spawner and duplicate it down here. Okay. For this one, I'm gonna add the ribbon grass. And on this one, I'm gonna add 2 entries. For the first one, I'm gonna add this mesh, and for the second one, I'm gonna add this mesh. Let's also add some variation to the rotation, and let's disable the debug on this one. For the ribbon grass, I'm gonna set the scale to something like 0.8 for the minimum and 1.3 for the maximum. And for the other single grasses, I'm gonna set the minimum scale to, actually 1 is good. I'm gonna increase the scale max to 1.5. Now let's add some larger grass around the trees. So first of all, let's select these nodes, press C and name them grass single. Now for the grass around the trees, I'm gonna use the same nodes as the seedlings. So let's select them. And press Ctrl D to duplicate them down here. So let's press D on the projection node to debug the nodes. I want to change them a little bit. First of all, in the create points grid, I'll set the grid extents to 80 and the cell size to 20. This way we're gonna have more grass. Let's delete the difference node. I don't mind having grass where the tree is. So let's delete it and connect it to the projection node. In the bounds modifier, let's set the bounds mean to 0.1 and let's also set the bounds max to 0.1. And let's set the values in the z-axis to 0.4. Okay. Now I'm gonna add some nodes to scale the points based on their distance from the trees. So let's drag these nodes here to make some room. Let's also delete these. Right click, search for distance and connect the transform points to the source input. For the target, I'm gonna use the path trees. So let's connect it like this. Enable debug on it. Let's also disable debug on this one. Enable set density and let's set it to something low like 50 or 10 or 5. 5 is better. Let's also increase this transform to -40 and 40. That's good. Now let's add a execute blueprint node and search for a scale by density. Let's enable debug on this one. I'm gonna set the minimum scale to 1.3 and the maximum scale to 0.7. Okay. Now the closer points to the trees have a lower density. That's why I set the scale mean to a higher value, because I want the points which are closer to the tree have a larger scale. Connect it like this and disconnect this one. Let's delete this. And I'm gonna use the exact same nodes we used here. The nodes we used to spawn the single grasses. Select them, press Ctrl D to duplicate them down here and connect them like this. Now we have some larger grasses around the trees. Also in the projection, select the get landscape data and make sure to disable the get height only. I don't mind having the rotation of the landscape. Let's try increasing the grid extents to 100 and the cell size to 20 is good. Okay, that's enough for now. Let's select all these nodes, press C, let's name it grass around the trees. Press Ctrl Shift S to save everything, and in the next section I'm gonna add twigs. Now let's add some twigs and leaves to the environment. So for that I'm gonna use the same nodes we used for the grass single. Let's copy these nodes from here. And press Ctrl D to duplicate them here. First of all, Let's delete the scale by density. I don't want that for the twigs. We don't need the distance. And let's press D on this one to see the points. The create point grid values are fine. So let's change the seed on the transform points. Okay. Let's change this one too. And also this one. I'll set the lower bound of this density filter to 0.2 to have more twigs. And I don't want the scale by density node, so let's delete it. And now let's add a transform point here. And then after it, I'm gonna add a static mesh spawner. Now these are the twigs I'm gonna use. There are too many of them. I'm gonna use 4 or 5 of them. So let's add 5 elements. And let's add the meshes. Okay, that's good. Let's disable the debug on this one and let's find one of the twigs. Right now they're too small, so on the transform points I'll first add some rotation. Oh, on the get landscape data node, make sure that get height only is disabled. So here on the transform points, let's set the scale min to 3 and scale max to 3 also. This way we can better see the twigs. I'm gonna set the scale min to 1.5 or 1 and scale max to 2. That's better. On the spatial noise, make sure to change the seed if you haven't. And let's have more twigs. For that, I'm gonna select the create points grid and decrease the cell size to 20. Now we're gonna have more twigs. Also here on the transform points, I'll set the offset min to 70. And this one I'll set to -70. I don't mind having some of the twigs on the path. So let's save everything. Select all these nodes. Move them a little bit to here. Press C to add a comment, and these ones will be twigs. Leaves. Now we can use the same nodes to spawn some leaves on the ground. So let's duplicate them. We just have to change the seeds a little bit. So here I'm gonna change the seed also here. Here. I'll set the density filter for this one. The lower bound I'll set to 0.1 and the upper bound I'll set to 0.9 just to add some variation. It doesn't matter. Okay, let's delete all the arrays from here and let's add 10 entries for the leaves. Okay, that's enough. Also on the transform points, let's first press on the density filter. On the transform points, I'll set the offset mean to 50 and the offset mean on this one to -50, or let's set it to -30 and 30. Okay. Let's browse to the leaves. Where is that? Here they are. Let's select it, press Ctrl V to browse to it. Now these are the meshes I've downloaded, but I didn't want to use them like this, so I went ahead and detached some of the leaves to have single leaves. So these are the leaves. Now these ones are better to scatter on the ground. I've detached 19 of them. Let's use 10 of them. So let's add them. Okay, that's good. Let's disable the debug on this one to see the leaves. And let's change the seed numbers a little bit so we have leaves in other places. Because right now some of them are overlapping with the twigs. Okay, and here I will decrease the scale a little bit. So let's set the scale min to 0.75 and the scale max to 1.5. That's better. Later on in the video I will add some twig and leaf decals too, but right now it's enough. So let's save everything. Make sure to select all these. Press C and let's name it leaves. Save again. In the next section I'm gonna add some rocks on the sides of the path.
Rocks.
Now let's add some rocks on the sides of the path. And for the rocks I'm gonna use exactly the same nodes as I used for the trees on the side of the path. So let's select these nodes and press Ctrl D to duplicate them down here. Now I'm gonna change some of the parameters on the nodes. So let's first of all press D on this one to see the points. Here I'm gonna set the transform points to 50 and 100. On this one I'm gonna set it -50 and -100. Let's also decrease the offset in the x-axis on both of them to -20 and 20. I'm gonna also change the bounds modifier to 10. That's better, I think. Yeah, that's better. After the attribute noise, let's add a transform point, and then let's add a static mesh spawner. Let's go to the collection. I'm gonna use this mesh to scatter on the side of the path. So let's add it here. First of all, let's add an array, and let's add the static mesh. Now I have to change the scale a little bit. So for the scale mean, let's set to 0.1, and scale max, let's set it to 0.2. Let's also disable the debug on this one to better see the rocks. Let's increase the scale a little bit. So let's select the transform points and let's increase the scale mean to 0.17 and the scale max to 0.25. Now let's check it in the level. Let's also add some offset in the z-axis. So for the offset mean, I'm gonna set it to -0.5, and offset max, I'm gonna set it to -1.5, or let's set it to -2 and -1. That's better. Let's also change the seed on the transform points. Okay, that's good. Now let's change its material a little bit so it blends better with the environment and with the soil material on the landscape. So let's browse to the mesh, select it, press Ctrl B to browse it. Here's the material. Let's copy it because I don't want to change the original material. So let's press Ctrl C to copy it. And let's go to the folder I want. And let's press Ctrl V to paste it here. Now in the PCG, let's add an override material and let's assign this material to it. Here it is. Now let's open it, and I'm gonna tweak the albedo settings a little bit so it blends better with the environment. Okay, now I think it looks better. So let's save everything in the PCG graph. Let's select these nodes, press C to add a comment, and let's name it rocks on the side. And let's save everything. In the next section, I'm gonna add the decals. Now, in this section, I'm gonna add decals to the environment. I'm gonna add 3 types of decal: rocks, leaves and twigs, and moss. This is the rock decal I'm gonna use. This one and this one are the twig and leaves decal I'm gonna use, and this one is the moss decal I'm gonna use. First of all, let's add it to the level to test it, especially this one which has sharp edges. Let's add it here. So let's browse it and add it. Let's scale it down a little bit, like this. This is good. Now, as you can see, the edges are sharp and it may not look good in some places. So to fix that, we can go to its parent. So let's browse it and duplicate its parent. Press Ctrl D to duplicate it. Let's rename it to edited and let's open it. Now in the opacity part, I'm gonna add another node. So let's find the opacity section. Here it is. Before connecting it, I'm gonna add a radial mask, radial gradient. This is the one I'm gonna use. So let's first preview it. This is the mask. I'm gonna use it to remove the sharp edges. So let's drag out of it, search for multiply, and connect them like this before connecting it to the opacity. Now let's save everything, and here in the material, let's change it to this one. And as you can see, the sharp edges are gone. Now we can tweak the parameters of the radial gradient to make it look better. So let's go here and let's promote these to parameters. The default value is 0.5. Let's promote it to parameter and set it to 0.5. The density is 2.33, so let's promote it and set it to 2.33, and that's it. These 2 parameters are enough, I think. Let's select them, set the group to radial gradient, and save the material. Now here in the material instance, we're gonna have radial gradient parameters. Let's increase the radius and change the density. Now I think it looks better. So let's save it. Let's delete this one from the environment and let's go to the PCG. Now the first thing we should do is to disable receive decal on all the meshes. Right now the only mesh I want to receive decal is the rocks we added on the side of the path. So let's select all the static mesh spawners. And here search for decal, or we should do them one by one. So let's select it, search for decal and disable receive decal. So okay, as I said, the only mesh I want to receive decal is the rocks on the side of the path. And I noticed something about the transform points of the rocks. I didn't add random rotation, so let's add it. And let's also increase the scale a little bit. I'll set the minimum to 0.2 and the maximum to 0.3. Let's also add increase the maximum offset to -3. Okay. That's good. Let's save everything, and I'm gonna use exactly the same points as I used for the rocks to spawn the decals. So let's make some room here. Now let's press D on this one. Here are the points. Let's drag out of it. Add a transform points node, and after that let's add a spawn actor node. This is the node I'm gonna use to spawn the decals. So here set the template actor class to decal actor, and enable allow template actor. Okay. Now we should add the decal to here. So let's go to the collection, and here's the one I want to use. Let's add it, wait a little bit, and it's added. Save everything. Now we should decrease the scale a little bit because right now it's too large. So let's first add some random rotation, then let's set the scale min to 0.1 and the scale max to 0.2. Okay, it's too small. Let's set the scale min to 0.3 and the scale max to 0.5. That is a little bit better now, but let's decrease it a little bit to 0.25 and 0.4. Okay, that's much better now. Now here, after the attribute noise, let's add a density filter. Connected like this. Okay. Now I removed half of the decals. We can also duplicate the decal in our folder so we can tweak the albedo settings a little bit. So let's browse it, press Ctrl C to duplicate it, and let's go to our project folder. Let's add a new folder and name it decals, and let's paste it here. Now I'm gonna drag this one in the PCG. So let's open it, and here I'm gonna add some color overlay. And I think that's good. Okay. Let's set the overlay intensity to 0. This is without. And I think it's good. So now let's add the leaves and twigs decals. Let's close this one. And under here, I'm gonna name it rock debris decal. Save it. Let's make some room here. I'm gonna use the same points we used for the leaves to scatter the decals. Just like here, let's duplicate these points down here. And first of all, to get a better sense of the leaves and twigs decals, I'm gonna disable all the grass and twigs and leaves static meshes. So select them and press E to disable them. Okay, that's good. Now let's also disable these ones. Connect it to here. Okay, these are too many points. Maybe I should have disabled the spawn actor and then connected it. That's okay. Let's disable it. Press D on the transform points. And as you can see, we have too many points. Let's change the density filter to 0 and 0.2, 0.1. These are still too many points. .03. Okay, never mind. I'm gonna use some new points for the leaves and twigs decals. So let's disconnect this. Make some room down here. Let's see. I'm gonna duplicate these points. Press Ctrl D to duplicate them down here. So let's connect them to the density filter. And now these are our points. Now we can change some of the settings. First of all, let's disable the density filter. Go here, change the settings on the transform points to 20 and 200, 150, 180. That's better. Let's set this one to -20 and -180. That's better. Here on the create point grids, I'm gonna increase the cell size to 35. On the spline sampler, I'm gonna set the distance increment to 100, 150, and here, now let's enable the density filter and set it to 0.5 or 0.3. Let's increase this to 200, 0 and 200, 250, 0 and minus 250. That's better. Let's save everything. Now here, after the density filter, let's add a density noise. And change the seed. Now I have two decals I want to use for the leaves and twigs. One of them has large leaves and one of them has small leaves, and that's why I'm gonna use two spawn actors. So let's add an attribute noise here, which we added. Add another density filter. Duplicate it down here and enable invert filter. And disconnect this one and connect this one to the transform points. Now these are the points I'm going to use for one of the spawn actors, and for the second one I'm going to use these ones. So let's debug them. Yes, these are the ones I'm going to use. Now let's select this one, remove the rock debris, and let's go to the collection. I'm gonna use these large leaves. Add it and press A to enable it. Okay, now we can better see the leaves. Now we have random rotation and we have previously set the scale because we duplicated these nodes from the other decal we spawned down here. So let's set the scale min to 0.2 and scale max to 0.5. That's good. Now on this one, let's disable the debug and disable this spawn actor. On the second one, I'm gonna use the other decal, this one. So let's add it and press A to enable it. Now this is the other one. As you can see, these are really small. So let's tweak the scale a little bit to set the scale min to 0.5 and the scale max to 1. Okay. This is good. Now let's enable both of them. Press G. If you think there are too many decals, you can always go back to the density filter and change the lower band and the upper band to decrease the number of the decals you have in the environment. I think mine is good for now. Let's enable these nodes. Maybe I will decrease the number of them after enabling the other static meshes. But before that, let's go ahead and add the moss decal. Now before adding the moss decals, I want to explain some things. First of all, I forgot to rename these spawn actors. This one is leaves and this one is leaves and twigs decal. Now if we select one of the decals and see the details panel, we can see that it has a sort order parameter. Now sort order controls how the decals interact with each other. Now for example, in this case, the moss decal has a sort priority of 0. Let's check it. Here it is. Now if I select the rock debris and move it, we can see that it is under the moss. But if in the details tab we set its sort order to 1, we can see that it is rendered above the moss, and that's what I want to set in the decals that we scattered using the PCG tool. So here I'm gonna set the sort priority of the rock debris to 1. This one, which is leaves and twigs, to 2, and the leaves decal to 3. Now when I add the moss decal, it is by default set to 0, so we have moss, then we have rock, and above that we have leaves and twigs decal, and above all of them we have the leaves decal. That's the order I want to scatter the decals. So let's select these and delete them from here, and here let's use the same nodes to scatter the moss decals. Let's make some room. Duplicate the density filter down here. I'm gonna set the lower bound to 0.5 and the upper bound to 0.8. Press D, and this is too much. Let's set the upper bound to 0.6. I think that's good. Let's duplicate these nodes and just in case, let's add an attribute noise. Change the seed. And let's add a density filter before adding the decals. Now let's debug this one. And we can control this one better. So let's set the lower bound to 0.2. That's better. Select the spawn actor. Let's remove this one and add the moss decal. Now let's connect it, and here it is, and as you can see, it is under the leaves. Disable the debug on this one. I think it adds some variation which is good for the environment. So let's enable everything to see how it looks. First, let's rename this one to moss. Select these nodes, press C, and let's name it decal. Also down here, select these ones, press C, and name these ones decal too. Now let's enable these static mesh spawners. Press E, and here it is. Save everything, and in the next section we're gonna work on the lighting. Lighting. So now let's do the lighting. First of all, let's select the directional light, and in the details tab, let's increase the intensity. I want to go with physically based lighting, and I want to create a sunny lighting around the time of noon. So I'm gonna set the intensity to 120,000 lux. Now the next thing I'm gonna do is to add a post-process volume. So from here, under volumes, let's add one. In the details, search for unbound and enable it. Then under exposure, let's set the min and max EV100 both to 10. So this is a good start. Next, before tweaking the other parameters, I want to use a console command. So down here, let's click here and write r.raytracing.nanite.mode space 1 and enter. Now I had to do this because all my foliage are nanite, and also I'm using ray tracing. So now let's tweak the other parameters. First, let's drag the post-process volume in the lighting folder. I'm gonna start with the directional light. Let's decrease the temperature to 5500. Increase the volumetric scattering to 3. And let's select the exponential height fog. Here, enable volumetric fog. And let's decrease the fog density to 0.02. I'm gonna set the view distance to 10,000, which means 100 meters. And the start distance, I'm gonna set to 1000 or 500. That's better. Let's also tweak the extinction scale a little bit. And scattering distribution. Let's select the post-process volume. First of all, let's close everything. I'm gonna use the convolution method for bloom. Let's decrease the exposure compensation to 0. I'm gonna add a little bit of chromatic aberration. Around 0.2 is good, is enough. I don't want dirt mask. And local exposure. First of all, let's go to the film settings. I'm going to decrease the tau value to something like 0.35. This way we have more details in the shadows. And now let's go to the local exposure parameters. Let's tweak the shadow contrast a little bit. And the highlight contrast. Let's actually disable these two and set the exposure compensation to 1. Now let's set the shadow contrast to 0.85 or 0.8 and the highlight contrast, let's set it to 0.8 also. Under color grading, let's see what happens if I decrease the temperature to something like 4000. That is too much, but I think around 6200 is a little bit better. The saturation, I will increase it a little bit to something like 1.1 or 1.05. And let's play around with the midtones gain. I'm gonna increase the green a little bit to something like 1.05, 1.03, and let's set this one to 1. Okay, the skylight, make sure that it's movable and real-time capture is enabled, and the default intensity scale is good, is enough. Under the directional light, let's increase the indirect lighting intensity a little bit. That's, I think that's good. That's a good start. Okay. Now, if I set r.raytracing.nanite.mode to 0, this is what it looks like, and if I set it to 1, this is what it looks like. It's so much better. Let's select the post-process volume and let's set the toe to something higher, like 0.45 or 0.40. Let's actually set it to 0.3. That's better. Under color grading global, let's increase the contrast a little bit to something like 1.3. Let's see. Or 1 point. Let's also decrease the fog density to something lower, like 0.01 or 0.015. Okay, I think it looks good. I'm not a lighting artist, but this is enough for what I'm aiming for. So now let's rotate the sun a little bit. And for that, press and hold both the Ctrl and the L key on the keyboard and move the mouse. So I think something like this looks good. Or this looks good. Now in the next section, I'm gonna add some falling leaves in the environment. Effects. Right click in the content browser and under Effects, let's create a Niagara system. I'm gonna use the blowing particles preset, so let's select it and click on create. Let's name it NS for Niagara system underline falling leaves underline 1. Now to test it, I'm gonna create a new empty level. So let's click on file, new level, and create a basic level. Okay, let's drag it in the level. And by default we can see that it's a perfect match for falling leaves. We just need to add the leaves to it. So let's open it. And here I'm gonna disable the sprite renderer. Let's also stop that, and I've already set this one to unlit. I'm gonna add a mesh renderer and let's click on fix issues. I'm gonna add 4 elements, and these are the leaves we used to scatter in the environment. So let's add 4 of them. Save it and let's check it in the level. So right now everything is good, except that when they hit the ground they don't look right. So let's go back to the Niagara system, and here align particle with collision plane. I'm gonna disable the allow alignment on X and enable allow alignment on Z. Let's save it and check it. So right now it goes through the plane. I don't know why, but I know that if we add landscape it looks correct. So let's create one. And here it is. But right now there are too many leaves, so let's decrease the spawn rate a little bit. Something around 4 I think is good. And let's also select the initialize particle, and I want to add some random scale to it. Right now all the meshes are the same scale. So here under mesh attributes, mesh scale mode, let's set it to uniform. Let's click here, search for random, and add random range float. I'm gonna set the minimum to 0.7 and the maximum to 1.3. Let's compile and save it. And I think that's good. We can now use it in our environment. Let's actually decrease the minimum scale to something lower, like, where was it? Here it is. Let's set it to 0.4. Save. I'm gonna also increase the size of the shape location. So let's set the sphere radius to something higher, like 700. Save it. Let's set it to 450. Save it. Okay, that's enough. I'm gonna use it now in my environment, and if there's any more tweaking I'm gonna do it there. So let's open the environment, and I don't want to save this. So now let's drag the leaves in the environment and let's move it up like this. That's good. We can add it to anywhere we want or anywhere near our camera in the next section. So let's press Ctrl+Shift+S to save everything. And in the next section, I'm gonna add the camera, work with the sequencer, and render using the movie render queue. Rendering. Let's start by adding a camera. So from here, under cinematic, let's add a cine camera actor and drag it here. Now we can go to the camera viewport by clicking on the perspective and selecting the cine camera actor. So let's set the rotation from here, something like, I think this view is good. Let's decrease the current focal length to something like 20 or 25, that's better. And let's increase the current aperture. Now let's add it to a sequencer. Let me create a new folder for it. Right click in the content browser and under cinematics, select the level sequence. Let's name it sequence underline environment 9 underline 1 and open it. I'm gonna drag it next to the content browser. First of all, let's drag the camera into it. I'm gonna add a little bit of movement to the camera. So on frame 0, I'm gonna add a keyframe. And another thing, make sure to set the sequencer to 24 FPS, at least that's what I'm going with. And you can show time as seconds or frames. Right now I'm showing it as seconds, but you can go either way, it doesn't matter. So let's go to the end of the sequence and then let's move the camera. And now click here to add a keyframe. Let's play it. So this is what it looks now. Right now it starts smoothly and speeds up and then ends smoothly. But I prefer to set the keyframes to linear. So select both of them, right click and set the key interpolation to linear. That's what I go with most of the time. Save it and let's play it. That's better. Now to render the sequence, we're gonna use movie render queue. It's a plugin and you should enable it. Go to the settings, plugins, search for movie render queue and make sure it is enabled. You may need to restart the project to enable it. So after enabling it, we can click here or here. We can click here and the movie render queue window will open. Right now by default the sequencer has been added to it, so we don't need to do anything. This is the folder which the render will be saved in, and we can click on it to open it. Here it is. As you can see, I have other renders too. And these are the render settings. We can add a lot of settings here, but I have some free movie render queue presets which you can download on my website, and those are what I'm gonna use to render this scene. So click on here, and as you can see, these are my presets. I have a high quality, a low quality, and a path tracer preset. Let's start with the low quality to test render the scene. Click on yes to override the settings and click on accept. Now we can click on render local to render the scene. So now the render has finished and we can click here to open the folder. Here it is. Let's select all of them and cut them in a new folder. Let's name it environment 9 test and paste them here. Now we can use DaVinci Resolve to make it into a sequence. So let's open it, DaVinci Resolve. After DaVinci Resolve has opened, right click and create a new timeline. I've already created it, and select all the images, drag them here, and it will automatically make it into a clip. Drag it in the timeline and let's play it. Here it is. I think it's fine. Now we can render it in high resolution. So let's close this and this one also. Go back into Unreal Engine and here click on the settings. I will use the high quality for this one. These are the console variables. I'm gonna use a screen percentage of 150 and I'm gonna set the anti-aliasing to 4 spatial samples, and this is the output. Click on accept, and now if you click on render local, the render starts. Oh, I forgot something. Let's cancel it. I forgot to add the falling leaves near the camera. So let's see where I had placed it. It's there. Let's delete it and drag a new one here. Let's move it somewhere around here. Oh, that is too far. Let's move it back. Let's go back to the sequence. I think that looks good. And let's go back to the post-process volume. Under local exposure, enable detail strength, and let's increase it to 1.1 or 1.2. It looks better now. This is 1, this is 1.2. Control Shift S to save everything. And now let's click here. The leaves are in the render view. Okay. Under anti-aliasing, always make sure that render warmup and engine warmup are enabled, especially if you have physics enabled or if you are using VFX in your scene. So now let's click on accept and click on render local. This is the warm-up frames. And the render has started. Now the render has finished, so let's click here to open the folder, and here they are. Let's create a new folder for it. I'm gonna name it environment 9.1. Let's select all of these images and drag them here. Now let's go back to DaVinci Resolve and let's drag all of these into the media pool. Drag it into the timeline and let's play it. Now I think it looks good. Okay, that's enough. Now we can color grade it if you want to, and we can use this section, the deliver tab, to export it. Considerations. There are two more things I want to mention. First, if you feel like the horizon of your render seems empty, you can do this. You can go to the edges. Let's hide the PCG for now. And increase the height of the landscape in these edges, or you can go to the landscape mode, manage, click on add some new sections to the edges of the landscape, like this. So basically I deleted the PCG from the scene and then sculpted the edges of the landscape. So now let's add it again to the scene. Okay. Let's double click on the camera to go where it is. And here it is. Now as you can see, the horizon of our render is not empty, but something else happens here because we haven't adjusted the rotation of the main trees. They may look bad on these surfaces. So let's open the PCG, and here for these main trees, let's select the transform point and set the rotation to absolute. Save it. And now they are vertical. So let's go back to the camera. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about is if you want to render for TikTok or YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels, you need your view to be vertical. So let's duplicate the camera and go to its view. Here all we have to do is to reverse the sensor width and height. So let's copy this one and set the sensor width to 13.365 and then paste the value here, and just like that now we have a vertical frame. But there's one more thing you need to do. So let's go back to the sequencer, browse it and duplicate it, open it, and in this one I'm gonna delete the camera and I'm gonna add the second camera, which is the vertical one. So when you want to render this one, we need to go to the settings of the movie render queue, and we need to set the output. Let's set it to a higher quality. Go to the output tab, and you need to set the output resolution to 1080 by 1920. Accept it, and now it will be correctly rendered. If you like these kinds of videos, head over to my Patreon. Donating gives you access to my videos before anyone else. You'll also have access to the project files. So that's it. Click here for more Unreal stuff, and thank you so much for watching. Massive shout out to my patrons for making this possible. Like this video, subscribe, and join our communities. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. So, see you in the next one.